Hi everyone. Today all my co-panelists are very terrified because they don't know the topic. So actually we have renamed our topic. It's called chaos. And what is chaos? I think it's on this theme: preserve to progress, architecture and design through the ages. Now we were born after independence, and after independence in India we have seen three ages of architecture. The first age I'll call the PWD age, which was a terrible age. After that, we transcended that. We came into a so-called globalization age. So yesterday night, I was staying in a global brand Novotel, and it was one of the most depressing properties that I ever stayed in. So that was the globalization age. And third, now we are going to encounter the unknown, which is going to be the AI age. AI age, artificial intelligence. Now I think only Sunitha with 100 hands can cope up with that. But I don't know what the rest of us are going to do about it. So, we have had a lot of great people, like successfully bypassing all the hurdles of PWD. We had Charles Correas, we have Simia, we had Bibi Doshi, who still managed to deliver great work during that era. Then we had a lot of other people coming in during the globalization age who still stood out. All my wonderful co-panelists here who have been doing a great job, and a lot of you are out here. And now we are getting into the AI revolution. It's extremely sad sometimes to see, like, I'm just coming back from Sri Lanka, and I feel that wherever we travel across the world, we see a phenomenal sense and devotion towards aesthetics. Whether it's the urban space, whether it's the built space, whether it's the unbuilt space. But when we look at India, it's actually an exercise in chaos where we continuously see some phenomenal stuff happening between a lot of bad stuff. It's like, you have to actually hunt for the good stuff. And of course, the PWD age is almost past now, but when we see the private sector has grown and the globalization has come in and things are getting standard and standard is getting boring, how do we navigate through this? So what do we do? So starting with Smaran, how do you think we can break the nexus of so-called globalization, standardization, and move ahead?
So, it's really strange because you spend an hour with Inder and he's faffing around and joking, and suddenly he throws like a nuke at you. I think, in terms of what we've been conventionally taught in school, I think the most important thing is to develop a sensibility and a certain sensitivity towards architecture, which, if one believes is a cultural practice, then regardless of where, when, and what age it is, you always figure out a way to find your own niche. So I think to develop the right response is to have the right critical apparatus set up in the way you think, in the way you operate, in the way you build your sensibilities. And I think if that is in place, I think it doesn't matter what is trending, it doesn't matter, like Inder was talking about, what age we are in or whatever it is, because you always kind of resort to that. And through that, there's a certain idiosyncrasy to the work, which, then defines a practice and the way you think and operate. So I would say that one needs to look within to find that. And it's actually work that you need to do over the years to build that up. And yes, there is external stimuli which is going to influence your search within, but that's the way to do it.
Interesting. Now, what would you do if somebody suddenly comes to you and says that I want to do a French Rococo house? So does it navigate with your way of thinking?
I might send him to Inder. Yeah. I don't know why I say that, but...
No, I don't think he does it either. No, we won't do it. I think architects in general don't get enough credit for the miraculous work that we did. It's like basically chaos. And it's what is architecture that we do, right? It's like basically a set of circumstances and people that come together, and you're trying to find resonance to all the chaos from everybody that's coming your way. And it's not an easy task, right? So all our work is basically a result of all those conspiracies coming at you at once and putting them together to make the most best living space or whatever architecture that we can do for people. So I think it's newness that comes from all these different things that get thrown at us. So every project that we do in India is like a open box, right? We have no standards to follow. We can design anything, anyway, custom with any material. So I think we build that Indian identity using all that craft and whatever comes so easy to us, unlike being in the West where they're tied down to certain standards and materials. And so we have a great free hand. And so I think we build our identity because of that. And I think we have a very strong one. And like you said, there is a lot of bad ones and there's a lot of good ones. So I think we are in search of that balance of creating this wonderful project, trying to deal with that, the whole set of.
So as a contradiction to your answer, like supposing somebody, like I feel we architects sit on a high horse sometimes, high moral ground, that we do something, we don't do something, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is my style. This is the way we all architects operate. It's all of us. We have that parameter. But supposing you go to a doctor and say, gangrene wala case mein haath nahi lagaunga, sirf mere ko na, I'll handle a fracture. It is something like a doctor, a medical profession, which is as noble as ours. You're ready to do it. Or somebody says, nahi, I'm not going to use American-made stent. I'm going to use only a handcrafted stent from Jaipur. It's like, so these are things which could happen on one side, but the doctors don't do it, the lawyers don't do it. So is it something that, are architects actually refusing to do something because we are sitting on a high moral ground? Or do you think it's the right way to go? So I would like to take this question to you.
I think we as a practice, we always put the client first. Because I think architecture is one profession where you have, which is an art, but at the same time you have all, like you need, it's almost like a collage of all of this. And that's something which we always believe in. And you need a client to fund your work. And you need a client who appreciates your work. So I think that, and you need a person who builds it in this 40 degrees sun also to do that for you. So I think it's more of a collaborative profession, of collaborative engagement. And I think that's where when you engage everyone together properly, I think your success rate is much, much higher. And I think that's what I've always believed in.
So there are two things in I feel every decision making sense in terms of design, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of professions. See, ideally, everybody joins a profession or a vocation in life to make his bread and butter first. A livelihood is a very critical thing. We can't hunt and eat, and we don't have farms to grow our own food any longer. We need clothes to wear, a lot of complications. So a lot of people have to do a lot of kind of work. So that's also sometimes a market demand. At the same time, because we are, creatively so intuitive and well-tuned, and we develop a fine aesthetic sense while we are practicing the profession or, learning the profession and interacting with our peers, there is always, I feel, a conflict of sometimes the bread versus what you wish to do, the heart versus the brain. So how do you navigate it? What do you do?
See, architecture, when you look at us as singular architectural studios or architectural practitioners, we are the micro. There's a whole macro when you talk about townships, when you talk about urban architecture, we are just microscopic within that. And like we're talking about something that is preserve and progress, we are nostalgic. When you're nostalgic, you kind of subconsciously build what you see. And our macro is so bad. When you talk about the urban landscapes today, within that small space, we're trying to make a difference. Within that small space, we're trying to create a little detail to show our identity, which is also then run by budgets and also, and yes, you said, we are all in here to make money, to run our studios, to run our lives. So at the end of the day, to tweak and to make that macro, to be a part, to be a little bit, to make that macro a little bit better is what we should do at the end of the day.
What do you think is Indian style? Is there an Indian style? How much are we influenced by the West? and what role is it shaping into now? Are we developing a new identity? Are we carving a new identity? Is our architecture something in terms in the realm of progress? Is it leading to something not only from standardization, but in fact it's like a monotheistic thinking in terms of the kind of products we are using, the materials that we are using? Are we somewhere reaching into a global sensibility, not just out of being pushed into it, but probably are our sensibilities coming together? And maybe, but for few odd works which stand out with the Indianness to it, we start seeing a lot of work from a lot of studios. With mine, we a lot of studios sitting across here, you know, where we start talking on an international language, or the language changes, it adapts to the context, it adapts to the environment, but still the language starts getting unified. So is it happening that we are developing a global language? Maran? Anybody can take this question.
No, I think if for us, it's like we're trying to bring, like Swapnil was saying, it's not just us, right? It's the project is a result of this collaboration and circumstances that come at you. Being true to, you know, the weather you're in, the context that you're in, are very, very strong for us to follow, you know. So everything comes out of that as a base, and then what we are producing in the studio is the best solution that we can think of to respect the location that you're in, the climate that you're in, and obviously the materials that we are using, right? And what is local to us, we are obviously trying to use as much as possible. And like you said, you don't want to be in a building that you can find in 3 other countries. You want to be true to the place that you're actually building in. So to bring that identity, I think craft is of course one way, but it doesn't have to be like heavily crafted to be Indian, you know. It's more about our culture, how we use space, and to build something that is true to the way we occupy buildings and the way of life that we live. That is more Indian to me. I don't think motives and craft, it is important, but that is not Indianness according to me. I think it's more the way we use it and the lifestyle.
And, you know, just to add to what Sunitha is saying, I think when you refer to globalization, I think you also felt that there is some kind of a formulaic solution to problems, right, in the form of architecture that, you know, crosses boundaries, it's omnipresent, so on and so forth. But I also feel with what is perceived as Indian, you know, currently in our country, I think is also getting formulaic, which means that if you use a certain set of materials and use the crutch of it being part of craft, then it's very easy to get the tag that it's Indian. And I think, you know, it's, honestly, I don't have an answer to what is Indian, whether it's architecture or otherwise. I think it's extremely difficult to answer that, because there is so much of variety across the country. How could we club it in one bracket, really? And if we really can't club our sensibilities or our sense of culture into one bracket, is it simple to say that there is architecture that is Indian? I mean, I know there is a Japanese way of thinking about space, but could you just say that there's an Indian way of doing it across the country? I think it's very difficult. So I think one needs to be a little careful when they say that, oh, the work is, you know, their work has such an Indian sensibility. I think a lot of times that tends to be superficial, and it's all optics, and it's also conditioning in the recent past that if you use these set of formulas and rules and you put these things together in this configuration, then it's deemed Indian. So I would also worry about that.
I'm very happy with your answer.
See, no,
I'm very, very happy with
one sec. I think I just want to add to him. I think architecture these days has been, you know, judged by imageries. And I think for me, what probably would be the way of life or the way of living or the sense of space, which makes a huge difference. And for a country as diverse as us, even 50 kilometers you go, and the whole palette itself changes, food changes, way of, you know, dressing changes, even the way of construction changes. So I think you cannot categorize it in one term.
Today, when we talk about the Indian style, well, design, and as architects, we're talking about design, but also building that design is an Indianness to it. The kind of skilled labor that we have is an Indianness to it. The kind of products that we are using today, it can be an international, it can be a high technological product, but like there are a lot of vendors here who are making products that look international, but they're Indian. So that is also an Indian way of building. If you have a project that's Indianly designed and Indianly built and with Indian products, I'll call it an Indian project. You know, design is very open to a factor of where the site is situated, what are the requirements of the client, which comes as design, which we are the Indian in that design. That's what I think.
I just wanted to add, like, I think it was like 2 years ago, the AI in New York had put together this webinar, you know, and they wanted to talk about India now in terms of design and architecture. So they'd invited 12 firms from across India, and they had a webinar. Each of us had 4 minutes to present, and we had to present what India's design is in those 4 minutes, you know. And so the whole conclusion of this is they came expecting, where is the Indian architecture, right? And they were obviously surprised to see the variety of work and what Indian designers are doing. And the result of that seminar was that apparently that was the most highest attended seminar ever. This was like during COVID, you know, so a lot of webinars. And so they were like, it is so interesting to see what India is doing now, because we are beyond that like post-colonial hangover. And, you know, we don't do so, how do you call it? It's like, it's not just in motives and, you know, copying what we did before, right? We are designing for now and people of now and how we live now. But that doesn't mean you forget the basics.
And,
So
and one last thing, Inder, you know, I mean, it's a little unfair that sometimes architecture needs to bear the weight of that question, because you don't do that with music. There is no, if you try to put everything in one basket, calling it Indian music, that's doing tremendous disservice to the depth and variety of music, or food, or art, or fashion, or any of those things. So why should architecture
if an Indian singer is singing, it's Indian music.
So basically, but basically they have evolved from but basically they have evolved from the Hindustani gharana, Hindustani style, or the Carnatic style, and the various gharanas which were involved. So of course, Indian architecture also was of two categories. You know, basically, if you look at most of the architecture where we, you know, appreciate the craftsmanship and all, was built for either royalty or for built for the temples. And if you actually see the urban architecture where, you know, humans lived in, the normal populace lived in, it's very, very minimalistic, very limited, the examples that we see. So the craftsmanship is borrowed from there. But what I personally feel about the Indian quality of architecture probably is the spiritual thing that goes, maybe not necessarily as a conscious application, but as a sublime thought from our system, where, you know, the quality of space that we etch out in terms of, you know, the communication between different people, the communication between humans, the flow through spaces. I think probably the context of those spaces is what adds the Indianness to the touch. It's the sublime context which is absolutely most important and which we are not talking about, and we just, you know, are layering it to the surface of craftsmanship, or, you know, the superficial treatment of surfaces of materials. So definitely I think it makes a great sense. But on the other side now, slightly changing tack again, if we come to the question again of, you know, when we look at the larger projects, when we are seeing these huge glass buildings come up, see, I am not an anti-glass guy, I am not a pro-glass guy. I feel everything has its place in the right place, right sense, and, you know, if you use it wisely, everything is good. But what are we doing in these areas, and are we able to educate the clients? Because, you know, we are seeing a lot of people want to just do the buildings. They look like glass boxes. They are, you know, ruining our things, and half of them are not beautifully designed also. It's not a beautifully done up glass building. It's an ugly box, which could, if you replace it with, you know, a sheet, it becomes a factory building. You put it with a glass, it's an office building. So, you know, this is the kind of work that we are seeing spreading across, and this is what is thrust upon architects today, saying that this is what you do, and they don't want to have complications. So what do you think? How do you target this?
I don't know whether I should be answering this.
Anyone can answer this. What's there?
It's a system in place now, you know, and we need to break that system. And people who are doing this kind of work, you are doing a lot of towers, and all it, the onus is on architects like this to be able to sit down, but of course at the end of the day the client is paying, the client is coming there, so maybe create a design that blows his mind, a design that is economically feasible within that budget, easy to build, because putting up glass on a skeleton is the easiest way to cover a building.
I
So then
think
how-
it's on us, you know. I think we should play that role a lot more seriously. I think clients, if they are aware of the impact of what they are building, there is a way for dialogue, and I think we have to spearhead that and convince them, you know. There's no other way to do it.
So I am just throwing this dialogue to people off the panel now. So one of you two who are doing a lot of commercial spaces, what do you think of carpet areas? What do you think of parameters? What do you think of lead? I think lead has led the way well and destroyed it totally now. So frankly, if you ask me, I think the biggest disaster that has happened to India is lead. Because they are dictating what should be green. They are making the buildings ungreen and then making us call it green,
no
and then they give you a
balconies.
certificate. So, you know, these are things that are happening and we are having, and I think everybody is dictated today to live by a lead which was invented in America, a well which was invented in America, and we don't have something which was invented in India. Aren't we foolish? Aren't we succumbing to it? Means, don't you think? And if we are, then why are we not a voice? And if we are a voice, why are we not heard? You understand? So there is a huge gap which has come in. So are professionals able to make themselves stand out aloud and dictate it?
So a lot of corporate buildings, if you look at it, we built it for people who are multinationals. So obviously they dictated the way they want their offices to be, right? So there is a brand guideline which says that we want this because any employee who works for, let's say, Microsoft as an example, we want them to have the same experience, whether it's in US or Timbuktu or India. So that has been the baseline. So, but having said that, when we kind of deal with them, we Indianize their designs. So, okay, let us take our thing. You know, we all have been local architects for HOK or SOM or someone, right? They never knew a concept of puja room, right? They gave, in one of our projects, they gave a cloakroom at the start. No one does cloakroom, right? If it's in the Northeast, people use this as a puja room. So we kind of customize it to the Indian way of living. So that's what actually happens. So similarly, like when people talk about a very restricted palette, we say that Indians don't like it. And even in India, Bangalore clients are different and Chennai clients are different and Hyderabad clients are different. So we are culturally diverse. And finally, you know, the user is the king, right? So we always customize things. So that's what happens.
But is it the death of architecture? Because frankly speaking, we are using spaces. It's like, you're still doing your puja.
Yeah.
But because an American wants to do it in India, do it wearing a tuxedo. You know, it's something like, you know, it is like, why is the situation coming in that, you know, things are getting dictated upon? Isn't there a challenge that, you know, the architecture moves towards more of a draftsmanship tomorrow? Because a certain agency has declared a certain parameter, or how do we do it? So, you know, preserve to progress. Now, the progress is very critical now. Preserve is very critical. How do we preserve and progress with our intent, our ideology, all the learnings that have gone in college?
Since the future is looking very bleak, let me play the devil's advocate here.
It's fantastic.
I was about to say that. So I'm saying a lot of the solutions we have that we see around us is because things are value engineered and there are systems in place, and we then subscribe to these systems as solutions and end up giving the results that we do in the form of architecture that you see. I think with technology, or let's say the other end of the spectrum, with craft, with technology, especially with 3D printing and things like that, what happens is the distance between thinking and making is shortened, one. Two, you then challenge the industry to customize something for you, right? You're not subscribing to a ready solution to make something which gives you a ready product that you always knew, which is what the prescription of that solution is. But then you use technology to challenge the system so that they can then customize something for you. So technology can do that. And in the other end of the spectrum, craft, like you always knew it, in new hands, in new sensibilities, can give you new solutions. Yes, maybe it's not scalable, maybe technology is scalable, but craft at a smaller scale still does that. And so what you see as those rare gems in the mess all around are exactly that, where craft has been used to question all your ready solutions that are apparent otherwise, that are, that are banal, and then you can bring in a new sensibility. So I think that technology can play a huge role in scalability like that.
I agree on technology. I agree on our IQ and EQ and everything that goes into creating business buildings and architecture. The whole question that I want to challenge is the client's understanding of it. The clients who are making the call not subscribing to something which is standard because they feel safe today. I do this X thing, I create this X box, I get my rental. I don't do this X box, I don't get that rental. This psychology change is something which we have to do, and I feel all the conferences where we architects speak to each other and keep educating each other over and over again, and we are not educating our clients at all.
No. See, if I'm sorry, but I have to interrupt. We have to not educate the client. We have to educate the person who's making this law and making this law hold good. If there's a certain Indian body which says that this is lead, that body needs to understand.
That too.
At the end of the day, what is a rule, what is a regulation is what is followed. If that rule was tweaked, then clients will subscribe to it. The client cannot come and tell you, why would a client lose even 1 rupee a square feet? Why should he? If there's a law written which he's going to get is written, they'll do that. Also today, as Indians, the one thing that I always see that's missing is skilled labor. We talk about craftsmanship. No, I'm coming to, not when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about an institute that makes build, that in London you have bricklaying courses, you have POP, you have woodwork courses. We had, but that's what I'm saying is missing. Today, we can dream a design. To build it to that dream, to that specification is very difficult to find at a regular space, at a regular price. Today, you want the best, you pay a high sum. If that best is more, that's what I think. And those institutes and those organizations, I think we lack as a fraternity. Today, if we had bricklaying courses, if we had woodwork courses, if we had POP courses that gave us the skilled labor, it would definitely affect the way we design. I think so. That's one way of looking at it.
I think these things will be very soon replaced by robotics, to be honest, because this and the changes are coming very quick for the mundane stuff that's happening. But the whole thing is now technology is going to play a role, like you said, 3D printing. There are millions of technologies which are going to emerge. We have to build everything fast with lesser carbon footprint, a faster what is that, time cycle and stuff like that. So things are getting interesting. Things are, see, where I was coming to, where things look bleak. The bleakness comes in adapting to a standardization. Like nobody forces somebody to eat a burger every day in India, but they want us to stay in those glass buildings which mimic, Seattle at a temperature of 48 degrees in Chennai. So, it is meaningless.
Who is that they?
Don't you think it's a fault of us?
No, it's not the fault of architects, because architects.
I'll just take this. See, if you looked at 1980s, there were office buildings. There was HAL building. If you had seen Titan on the old airport road, they were all corporates. They were all good, really good corporate office buildings. Suddenly, one technology park comes in Whitefield. You see the large glass building. That became a reference for our success, and that became a reference for us, saying that this is the modern Indian international way of working.
No, I think it was just an aspirational phase. But I think we're coming out of that.
I think no. I am telling you, architect. See, as I'm telling you again, glass is still good. You use it wisely. It's one of the best things to use. I love glass. I love using glass, frankly. But you use it wisely. It's a very good material.
But we need references. So when you start changing, when the reference changes back,
you should show something.
Something which can be done, which is fast. Which is a modern way with the of the context. I think people will turn back.
Who wouldn't want to save energy costs, right? And if you did a non-fully glass
but the
building,
challenge that is coming is they want to save energy not with single glazing, with double glazing, with triple glazing, with quadruple glazing.
That is for LEED certification, but not that.
So, yes. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I am all for glass. As I'm saying, I'm not an anti-glass guy.
No, I know.
But what I'm talking is not about glass. I'm talking about the essence of construction. The parameters which are dictated by the multinational brands like a Microsoft or probably
no, even
a
hotels,
JLL.
right? Like,
Like
they come with
hotels.
manuals, right? And
Absolutely.
they'll tell you have to follow this color, this wood, this pattern. So we did a hotel, okay? And so you throw the onus back on the client, right? Like, so we done a hotel which was a resort brand first, and that converted to a Holiday Inn. And Holiday Inn comes with a green manual. They want the whole hotel to look green. And the owners refused, they said, no, this is a beautiful property. You will get the franchise if you agree to keep these things, So they were able to use a Holiday Inn logo, but they agreed to keep the ethos of the building to its true sense. So again, it's education, awareness, all that,
So I feel this is where the part 2 progress is going to come in. See, for the smaller projects, yes, it's still a personal owner-driven kind of a story. When it comes to the larger scale of work, which is I think 70% or 80% of India's construction today, it is dictated by multinationals. It is dictated by all these what are they called, the leasing agencies, etc., or the hotel brands and stuff like that. I think it's a time that we educate those people to create the Indianness of creating a context which is design-based, which is applicable to us, not just necessarily in terms of climate, but in terms of an aesthetic, in terms of the spiritual aesthetic which is a part of India, in terms of the light, the space, the courtyard, or the the skylight, stuff like that. And I think we can create beautiful spaces. In fact, one of the best branded hotel that I saw was in Cusco, in Peru. It was a branded hotel, but the aesthetics were extremely different. And I think that is the need of the hour, and how we educate and push people towards that. So the whole idea here is that if you want to preserve to progress, it cannot happen only with a panel of architects sitting together, but I think every panel should have thought leaders who come in, whether they are industrialists, whether they are businessmen, whether they are leasing agencies, corporates, the Microsofts of the world, etc., who come and sit, and then we do something about it. Do we have more time to go on, or you're fed up with us already?
I think,
Yeah.
When did we become insensitive to beauty? And now ugliness doesn't seem to bother the common man. And I think till that doesn't change, our clientele will not ask us for beautiful things. And we that's not enough.
That's what I'm talking about, urban landscape and nostalgia. What are we looking at on a daily basis? This concrete roads, and it's just that there are no landscape pavements.
You go to Europe, you go to some places, you can see that the common man wants beautiful places. Whereas today our common man has become completely insensitive to beauty. That has been a huge shift in our perception of good stuff or beautiful things. Till that doesn't change, so I feel there as architects, what we can do is really take the value of design to people. And that is where only when they demand good design, we will automatically give them good design.
See, all these product sponsors who come with us, they have started developing beautiful products now because they're spending a lot of time with architects. And it is moved from the simple, humble tile to beautiful tiles, to beautiful stuff. The windows are getting beautiful. The paints look interesting. It's not the type of paints we had earlier. So I think we should get more people to mix with us in these conferences. So then we can spread the word of beauty along. Are we done? Or any more questions?
Actually, time is up. So I think we'll just give it only one more question. Yes, sir.
do I need to introduce myself?
Please do, please do.
Dr. Sridhar Rajan, Professor of Architecture for 47 years. And I've been studying about culture. There's something like a cultural bubble. See, we are all speaking in English. No? And everything here is written in English. And we are talking about Indian style. There was no India actually. Only after the British left, there's something like a geographic India.
Jambu Dvipe Bharat Khande.
Yes. So every culture, every cultural bubble has a spearhead, that is the language and the script. So over the country right now, it is English. But it was B.V. Doshi, Charles Correa, then Laurie Baker, Revati Kamath, and so many others who spoke about critical regionalism. That is, think globally, act locally. Isn't it? Yeah. So there is also something called osmosis. There are 806 districts in the country. Every district has a cultural bubble sort of. And every district to district, there is osmosis. Yes. So the concept of Indian style, Indian architecture is not correct, as you mentioned in the beginning. And we should look into critical regionalism and accept the best of the other cultures. Cultures mix, isn't it? Cuisine, art, music, there's a mixture of all that. And we take the good things of another culture and incorporate it in our own way. So there's nothing wrong in using glass or some global technology. There's nothing wrong. I can keep on talking. I stop
No,
here.
I think
Absolutely
we
appreciate
pretty
it.
much agree. That's what we.
Yeah,
I
that's what
think
we
that's
are-
what the consensus was.
Yeah, we all agreed on
Yeah.
that.
I think we built for where we belong.
Yes.
I think we will.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.